Hello guys and welcome to the Exterminator game development tutorial series. My name is JD, and in this tutorial series we'll be going through the entire development process from the beginning to the very end of this game, and I'll be your instructor the entire time. So I'll be using Unity as the game engine, and the game is a mobile twin stick shooter. Okay, so the scheme or the backstory of the game is to play as a special operator to clean up mysterious creatures in a secret research facility. The platform we'll be building on is Android and iOS, and we'll be using the Unity game engine, which is one of the most popular game engines, especially in mobile development. And then the language we'll be using is C#, which is also a very popular language. And also be focusing on the coding and game development part. We'll not be focusing on anything asset related, so we'll not be making any models or animation or rigs or texture in that manner, but we'll be collecting a bunch to put together our game, but we'll be coding every individual line of the game. Okay, so the focus is coding. Alright, so we'll be developing a bunch of different game mechanics. One of those is the basic player control, right? So be creating the joystick, and then we'll be using the twin joystick control to control the player movement, aiming, and also the camera follow and rotation. On the other hand, we'll also be implementing the basic mobile input like touch and drag. So we'll be implementing different game mechanics. One of those being the inventory system, right? So which is one of the things all the games almost all have, right? The inventory system will be keep track of the inventories the player has, where are they, how to attach them to the different part of the body, what animation do they use when they are being used, right? And then also to take care of their purchase, so their acquisition, their switching, and also the purchasing of those inventory items will all be implemented. And then we'll also be implementing another thing called the abilities system, right? We'll have a system that can allow us to define different abilities, right? And also, of course, to define the stamina attribute, right? Different ability definition, their storage, and then their cost, cooldown, and the purchase of these abilities, right? So we are mentioning purchase twice. So yes, we'll have also a shop system, right? The shop system looks like this. So it's going to be having a credit for the player to use to purchase different items, a way to define different shop items, and then the way to purchase them. And you can see we have different type of item, right? We have weapons like the pistol and the rifle. We'll also have abilities that the player can purchase, right? And the player will start with very little money, right? And then they will have to kill enemies to gain money, and they can buy more and more advanced weapons and abilities, right? That's basically the shop system. On top of that, we'll of course have the enemies, right? The enemies will have three major enemies. The first one will be the Chomper. Chomper is a melee enemy, and it's able to patrol the environment and have a perception system, and then when it sees the player, it will go pursue the player and then attack, of course. And then the second one is the Spitter. The Spitter is very similar to Chomper, but it is a ranged enemy. Okay, it also does the patrolling and perception as well. And then the last one is the Spawner, which is actually able to spawn the previous two enemies, right? And then it has the same kind of perception system. So the perception system is actually another thing we need to do. We call AI perception. AI perception is actually a system that we use for the enemy to detect the player, but this is not limited to that. So basically, the perception system will have different type of perceptions, and one of those being the major one called the set perception. As you can see in the image, right, the Chomper here is basically seeing the player, right? The set perception has a team definition, which allows the enemy to detect either the object of the same team, or offside team, or neutral ones. Right, we're using a team-based way to differentiate enemy friendly or neutral, right? And we'll have a radius for the site, basically the radius of its spherical form, right? That's the site radius. If the player is out of the radius, the enemy wouldn't be seeing the player, right? We'll have a block detection system so that the enemy wouldn't be seeing the player if the player is behind a wall or something, right? We'll also have the peripheral angle for the enemy, as you can see here, right? The two lines here defines the viewing angle of the enemy here. So if the player is actually here or here, the player wouldn't be seen, right? And we'll also have a forgetting timer, so that when the player is actually out of the range here, the enemy wouldn't forget the player right away, but to have a timer to forget the player. That will just make the behavior more stable. Of course, the timer will be cleared if the enemy sees the player before the timer expires, right? So we'll also implement some other similar perceptions, like always aware, which is going to be a small range that if the player is in that range, the enemy will always see the player, right? And also hit detection, of course. So when the player actually damages the enemy, they will be able to see the player, right? Okay, so that's the AI perception system. And after that, of course, we'll be making the AI behavior trait, which is basically the logic of the AI. We'll be using something called a special version of the finite state machine, which is basically a behavior trait. We'll have a root, and then we'll have different tasks laid out as in different priorities. Anything on the left has higher priority, and then things on the right. So the highest priority one will be if the AI sees the player, right? It will have to move to the player and attack the player. That's the highest priority, right? And then if the AI can't see the player, then the AI will check the last place that the AI sees the player, if there's any, right? If there is, then go there, wait for a bit, and then clear that last scene location because it's already checked, right? If the enemy doesn't have the last scene location, the last thing to do or the lowest priority will be just doing a patrol. And the patrol will move to the next patrol point and then wait. You can see how the logic is very clear here, right? Do this if possible, and if that's not possible, if the player is not seen, move to the last scene location of the player, and if that's not possible, right, do the patrolling. That's the basic logic of an AI behavior trait, and we'll be implementing this bit by bit. And then we'll be introducing the finite state machine. We'll be talking about different components of that, like a sequencer, selector, decorator, right? And then a bunch of other things like blackboard, AI task, all those important components of a behavior trait. All right. So after that, we'll also be doing the user interface. Right? The user interface looks like this. So we have basically the health bar and the stamina bar, right, to show the health and stamina. And then we have the ability dock in here, which will have a bunch of different abilities the player can choose and cast. We have the aim and move control, pause, and then also the credit to show how much money the player have, and pressing that credit will pop up the shop menu, which is something you saw earlier, right? So we'll be implementing every bit of the user interface as well. Alrighty, so yes, and there are more, right? We can list the exhaust list, but we'll be doing like health and damage system, we'll be doing projectiles, in-game UI, right, camera shake, and level manager, right, audio, of course, a bunch of other things. And then our focus again is going to be in game programming, so be covering very important programming concepts like the object-oriented programming, right, component entity system or ECS, CES, right, different programming patterns, like singleton interface, right, inheritance versus composition, those kind of things. We'll also be highlighting different data structures that C# offers and talk about the pros and cons of these guys, right, and when we're using different systems. Alright, this is going to be a broad overview of the game, and next let me actually go ahead and show you how the game looks like. Alright, so here is the main menu of our game. You can see now we have the title Exterminator, right? We're controlling the hero character, which is on the right, Alan, to get into a research facility and kill mysterious creatures in there. Hence the name is Exterminator, right? So we have two buttons here on the main menu, a start and the controls. If you go to the controls, you can see now we have a bunch of settings here, or not settings, but instructions here. And you can see on the upper left corner we have the health, and then on the upper right we have stamina. Right, the health is health, the stamina is basically the thing you need to use to cast abilities. Now, yes, we have abilities. Right beneath the stamina, we have this ability dock, which is the list of the abilities that the player have. And we have 3, the fire ability and the speed boost, and finally the health regen. You'll see them when we play the game. And then right beneath that, we have the aim control, which is the basic attack. Right, you can use that joystick to control where you're aiming and shooting. Right. So on the other side, we have the move stick, very self-explanatory. So this is more or less like a twin sticker shooter game, right? That you guys are familiar with. And then above that, we have the pause button, and then above that, we have the credit. And the credit shows how much money you have, and you can also press it to pull up the shop, and you can buy stuff in there. All right, that'll be it for the basic controls. So let's go back, and then we can start the game. As you can see now, we start at the center of the beginning stage, and you can see in the center, upper center, we have the enemy left. Right, that's how much enemy left in the environment. So we have to kill them out to win the game. That's the basic idea. We can click on the credit button to show the shop. You can see now we have basically a bunch of items there, and with the current money we have, which is $30, we can only buy the pistol. So I'm gonna click on the pistol and then buy it. Okay, that will give us the pistol. Now if we go back to the game, you can see now we're holding the pistol. Okay, let me use the move stick to start going forward. You can see now there's a bunch of enemies patrolling there, right? Those are called chomper. Okay, they're gonna be in the patrolling stage until they see us. Okay, you can see now that chomper saw us, and then we need to destroy it, right? So we can just shoot at the enemy. Okay, when we shoot and kill an enemy, you can see now how we are getting rewards, right? We have more credit added in. They will see us when they take damage from us, or we're in front of them and not blocked by any wall and stuff. So they have true sight perception system there. Okay, and let's kill this one as well. So our goal is to reach $80 so we can buy the rifle. The speed boost can be bought later because it's really not as useful as the rifle. So I'm gonna kill this enemy. You can see now we're not in the peripheral angle of the enemy. That's why it's not seeing us earlier until we shoot it. So yes, the enemy have also the hit detection. So when you hit them, they will immediately see you, right? Another thing you're probably noticing is that when you are running further away, at some point the enemy will forget you. And what's actually happening is that the enemy will actually check the last point it sees you, go there, look around. If it doesn't see you, you can see now how it just goes back to patrolling. Right, that's some additional game mechanic we'll be implementing. Alright, so it looks like we just need to kill one more, right, to actually get the enough money to buy the... Oh, I'm taking some damage. Be careful about that. Yes, now we have enough money to buy the rifle now. Let me go ahead and buy it and go back. Alright, now let me switch to the rifle. You can click the shoot stick to switch weapon, as you can see. Right, let me go ahead and kill more enemy. We have 19 left. So of course there are more different type of enemies. Here you can see this guy is called the spitter. What it does is it's spitting out a fireball, and then it can hit you and deal damage. Right. Okay. Let me kill these two as well. Okay. Now keep on going. You can see right in front of us we have a bigger guy. This one is called the spawner. It's able to spawn enemy in a certain frequency. And so we have to take care of it sooner than later, otherwise it's gonna spawn a whole lot. Right, so let's deal with some damage to the spawner first. But as you can see, it's constantly spawning new enemies. We have to be really careful about our aiming, just to be able to actually damage it instead of the infinitely spawned enemies. Right? Alright, cool, now it's dead. You can see now over the time we killed quite a bunch of enemies. Now we can go to the shop and buy the rest of the abilities. You can see now on the right side we have now all 3 abilities populated. And you can swap through them, and you can see this is almost like a dog. you see on the Mac OS, right? We can go pick different abilities and then cast them. Let me go to the health, release. You can see now our health is growing up, right? You can also see there's a cooldown happening, right? Let's take a look at what's happening next. We have a bunch of enemies in front of us. We can cast our speed boost here to quickly go there, and then we can cast our fire ability. Let's take a look at that. So speed boost and then fire. Now you can see they're all taking fire and constantly being burned, and that's how we kill them all together, right? Quite easy. Now let's take a look at the next stage, which is going to be the final part. We have a lot of spawners in this corner. Not this corner, this is just one, but we have a whole lot in here. Let's take a look at that. Right, we're just gonna cast a big burn so that we can burn them all together. My goal is to kill the spawners as much as I can, but you can see there's a lot of enemies in the way. You can also see how our enemy counter is constantly checking how many enemies are there, right? And they're going up and down because the spawners are spawning new ones. So we need to really deal damage to them first. Okay, now we have 3 left, 2 left. Oh, 1 left. This is the last one. And voila, we win the game, right? That's the basic game mechanic you see, and we'll be implementing every little bit of the whole game. Everything is done, nothing is skipped. The audios, right, the effects, everything will be either made or provided, right, those assets, and we'll be coding every bit of the code. Alrighty, now you can see we have the UN menu. We can go back to the main menu, and we also have the pause menu to go back, right? And yes, that will be the whole game. Alrighty, as we're approaching to 20 minutes already, let me just give you some more final remarks here. One of the important things to remember is that this is not for beginners, okay? And this is actually the 3rd installment of an entire tutorial series from the basic C# to basic Unity to here, right? So if you're a complete beginner, this one will not be easy, right? You can try, but this is going to be really challenging. So please go back and check on those basic ones before jumping into here. The foundations are needed, right? And even for people who have went through those, I should also warn you that this one is not going to be easy either. This one is more than 100 videos, right, covering an entire project from beginning to finish, and it's going to be super long, and you're going to have the time and determination to do it. Of course, right, if you have any questions, right, please post it, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. And I do hope, right, you guys can have a really nice and smooth experience with the tutorials. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys in the videos.